إن الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله أرسله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا فصلوات الله وسلامه عليه. We begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We praise Him because He is worthy of praise. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from the evils within ourselves and the evil consequences of our actions. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send His peace and blessings upon the last and final messenger, upon his family, his companions, his wives, and all those who follow his way until the end of time. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. We remind one another to be people of taqwa, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among the muttaqeen. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen, amma ba'd. After about almost 25 years of constant disappointment in the state of affairs of the ummah, the state of affairs of our country, America, going from voting for Bush, being an utter disappointment for the Muslim community, to being hopeful in Obama, to finding disappointment in Obama, and then Trump coming along and finding much disappointment in that, and then voting for Biden and finding disappointment in that, and now we got Trump coming back again. How long can a human being really be patient? How long can we continuously be disappointed before we start to lose hope? This is a very serious question, because after nearly 25 years of working very hard to make a difference, whether it's for our brothers and sisters in Palestine, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Sudan, in East Turkestan, wherever it may be, only to feel like we've made no progress whatsoever. When can we just say, you know what, screw this? When? And this is an incredibly important, incredibly serious test, dear brothers and sisters. Wallahi, it's one of the more serious tests of Iman. Because at this point, we have a decision to make. We have a decision to make. Do we take the route of, you know what, screw you, America, screw all of this, there's no point, and thus I'm going to take the route of anger, resentment, hate? Or do I take the route of Iman? Because these characteristics, these behaviors that I just mentioned, anger, hate, resentfulness, these are antithetical to Iman. Iblis responded to Allah's command with hate and resentment, and he continues to live that way. Anger towards humanity, anger towards Allah, and he's Iblis. The route of Iman, however, that's the choice that obviously we're going to make. And in light of all that's going on, what exactly do we need to do to take the route of Iman and to protect ourselves and our communities and our children from the route of hate and resentfulness? Well, let's look at Yaqub alayhi salam, the prophet Jacob, because his story is a story of constant disappointments from the people around him, his children, who betrayed him and betrayed their brother, resulting in him being disconnected from his beloved son Yusuf, alayhi salam, Joseph, to where now he is always in sorrow, constant sorrow, wondering what happened to his child. He lost his child at the age of, when he was 6, Yusuf alayhi was 6, alayhi salatu wasalam, wondering, where is he? I mean, can you imagine your child is somewhere being taken care of by another person who you don't know who they are? I mean, that is a disappointment. That is, wallahi, thinking about it is too difficult, let alone actually experiencing this. But what you find in Yaqub alayhi salam is the ability to constantly be hopeful, constantly be optimistic, despite his sorrow and despite repeated disappointments. Because his children didn't just disappoint him once, they disappointed him multiple times, often leading to the same exact thing. Yet, after all of this, you're talking about decades of consistent disappointment from the behaviors of his children. Before being reunited with Yusuf alayhi salam, he says the following: اذهبوا فتحسسوا من يوسف وأخيه ولا تيأسوا من روح الله إنه لا ييأس من روح الله إلا القوم الكافرون. He told his children, go find Yusuf and his brother. Wallahi, he still had hope after decades. It said 40 years. He still had hope. And he said, never despair from the mercy of Allah. He's the one telling his children, even though he is the first and most impacted by what happened. How was he able to muster that up? And remember, Allah is telling the story of Yaqub alayhi salam to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, telling the Prophet, hey, look at your brother in prophethood, Yaqub alayhi salam. He was able to maintain hope. The Prophet going through 13 years of Mecca, disappointment, betrayal from his people, hitting a wall when it comes to the progress of da'wah, wondering if there is any way out of his circumstance. Allah is telling the Prophet, look at Yaqub alayhi salam. He was patient for longer than you, and he faced equally hard disappointments. How were they able to do it? How can we do it today? And number one, dear brothers and sisters, is about appreciating why Allah allows the constant disappointment. And the answer is, as Allah tells the Prophet, Inna waliyyi Allah alladhi nazzala al-kitab wa huwa yatawalla as-salihin. The first thing the Muslim American community gets out of the constant disappointment is detaching their hearts and their expectations from other than Allah, allowing their hearts to only depend on Allah. And so the fact that we are so disappointed with the results of the past 25 years, despite all of our efforts, we must realize it's not our efforts that's the problem, but rather certain evil people who will always do evil because they are evil. And so don't depend on them. Don't expect change to come from them. Don't expect change to come from the system, but rather expect change to come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thus, waliyyi Allah. If the conclusion or the result of 25 years of disappointment is for us to see Allah as our wali, as our guardian, and nobody else, then that is a true victory. And know, dear brothers and sisters, when you really analyze the tests of the Muslim American community, you find that these tests, wallahi, I've been teaching this for the past several months, and I am nothing short of humbled by these tests, because they are the same tests that Allah tested the companions with. And if Allah tested the companions with them, He did it because He knew that they are worthy of being leaders. And so we say, inshallah, the test that Allah has been testing the American Muslim community with, and our responses has shown that Allah wants us to be leaders, not just members of a society who follow other people. No. We are the leaders, and we invite other people to see what we have to offer. And we are excited to share what we have to offer to the world, whether Muslim or non. That is the mindset. That is the result of saying, Inna waliyyi Allah. Allah is my guardian. That's number one. The second thing, a person who falls into despair, into anger and resentfulness, is somebody who has lost the ability to see the good. Yes, we are disappointed, but we have made gains. It's about us recognizing it. Now, you can ask our brothers and sisters in the political realm. The fact of the matter is, there are now even more Muslims representing the American Muslim community in the political structure than ever before. That we Muslims we have never been more capable, more equipped in dealing with our challenges here than ever before. We have never been more united and organized around our issues than ever before. We have never had the ability to show that we act according to our values and not according to our worldly pursuits than ever before. And so, in light of all these circumstances, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages us and tells us, be people of shukr, be people of gratitude. Inna fi dhalika la'ayatin likulli sabbarin shakur. Allah telling the Prophet and telling us in times of difficulty, be somebody of great patience, but also be somebody of great gratitude. Why? It's not because, we're paying our dues to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but rather gratitude is the ability to see good despite the bad. It's our ability to see the blessings, the progress, despite the overwhelming feeling of disappointment. And so long as we're able to do that, hope lives in our hearts. So long as we're able to see the good, even if it's small, then optimism remains in the heart. And so those who lose hope in Allah, those who succumb to the disappointment, thus becoming people of resentfulness and anger and hate, are people who haven't practiced shukr, gratitude. And so be people of gratitude. And finally, dear brothers and sisters, remember, and this is the most important point, remember, our home is Jannah. Our home is Jannah, paradise. It's not here. And so if in our minds, why we do this is to create for ourselves the comfort and the leisure and the luxury and the worldly entertainment and indulgence, that's not for the believers. You'll get some of that in this life. You'll get a portion of that in this life. But when Allah gives us a portion of that, then it's for us to take a little bit of refreshment so that we continue the real pursuit. If what we gain out of the constant tests that the American Muslim community has been dealing with for the past 25 years, if what we get out of that is Jannah, then enough said. That's enough. If what we gain out of this is a higher place in paradise, then it's worth it. It's justifiable. So don't lose sight of the real goal, and that is paradise. And this is what the prophets did so beautifully. Despite their circumstances in their mind, paradise was always the goal. And so whatever challenges they faced, they weren't overcome with disappointment or stress, but rather they faced those challenges head on, because they understood the point of those challenges is to get them to paradise. And we hope that, as the Prophet ﷺ says, the most tested among humanity are the prophets, and then those who are closest to the prophets, and then those who are somewhat closer to the prophets. We hope that these series of tests that have been afflicting the American Muslim community is nothing short of a sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves this community, is pleased with this community, and wants paradise with this community. So these three things, dear brothers and sisters, as we progress into the new Trump administration and whatever challenges that has to bring, as we look at the appointments of Trump, being no surprise, but nonetheless a disappointment, let us remember these 3 points. Allah is our guardian, and these tests and these constant disappointments allows our hearts to only take Allah as our guardian, thus not depending on anyone else. That we must be people of gratitude, which here I define as being able to see the good despite all of the evil, and that paradise is our goal. And if the only thing we get out of these constant tests is paradise, then wallahi, it is worth it. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala khayri khalqillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man wala amma ba'd. I'm sure many of us have different feelings about the American Muslim community. That some might look at the American Muslim community as a failure, as there are too many problems, or some people might say, who comes to the masjid is only a small percentage of actual Muslims. There are a lot of Muslims out there who are completely disconnected from the masjid, and who knows what they're doing in terms of haram, like drinking alcohol or dating or any of those things. The fact of the matter is the following, dear brothers and sisters. Time and time again, wallahi, time and time again, the Muslim American community has shown that it puts its values before its worldly pursuits. It puts its values before worldly pursuits. That we are a generous community. When the Muslim community needs something, from a masjid to an institution to a service to helping a brother in need, we never fail to provide. Have you ever come across a masjid project? I'm not familiar, maybe there is, but I'm not familiar with a group of peer people who are seriously trying to establish a masjid or a Muslim organization or institution that failed to raise the funds. I don't know. What does that tell you about the American Muslim community? And definitely last but not least, the American Muslim community is willing to put aside the factors that divide us, from ethnicity to nationalism to ideological beliefs, to a large extent. And of course, we're not perfect, dear brothers and sisters. There's work to go. But we are willing to unite over the causes that please Allah and His Messenger. And this is the formula of the companion generation. A people whose values trumped their worldly pursuits, who were generous and always rose to the cause, and when Allah and His Messenger called them to something, they united, no questions asked. Isn't really that the American Muslim community? That's what I see in the American Muslim community. So we have every reason to be optimistic over our future and for our future. And I am quite optimistic that what is to come for the American Muslim community and the influence of the American Muslim community on the global ummah is going to be something that the history books document. Because we are doing something I don't know in history a group of Muslims did. Minority in a non-Muslim land, fighting against all of the odds, yet making an impact and making a difference. So be encouraged and put your head high as we come to this new administration, whatever it has to offer. Continue to do what you do. And remember, the reward for paradise, the reward for patience is paradise. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to live up to what was just said. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to excel what was just said. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help our brothers and sisters in Palestine, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Sudan, in Yemen, in East Turkestan, in Kashmir, and wherever Muslims are being persecuted. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to be a source of alleviation for them. And may Allah always remind us of the beautiful hadith. Allah will help those who help others. Wallahu fi auni al-abd ma kana al-abdu fi auni akhi wa aqim as-salah.